This is a laptop test for Trials of Mana. It's the demo on PC. This is a i3, 3 gigahertz with 2 cores and 4 threads. Got 8 gigs of RAM in here. I think it's DDR4 RAM on a Windows 11 laptop. We're going to be playing at 720p on this laptop because we can't go any lower, to my knowledge. Yeah, the game won't let me adjust it to higher resolution, which is fine. I want to say it won't let me adjust to a lower resolution either. Now, if I were playing this on, say, a desktop, I could go up to I can go up to at least 1080p, if not 4K. Would not be shocked. Let me start from where is there are multiple autosaves, so we can just try again. We're fine. So we'll start a new game save and pretend we're not start from the beginning. I swore I made multiple saves already. So this will just be a test of the frame rate, because I played this game last week without commentary, and I was getting in between 30 and 40 frames a second, which for a game like this, I would argue is fine. And on a small screen, the inability to lock the frame rate is not a deal breaker, I don't think. Rise. I think I was playing as her earlier. Second character can be who, it doesn't really matter. We're not going to get that far in the game. I don't even know when they join. So the frame rate's not going to hit 60 that often here, but I think it's not going to drop below 30 based on my experience. But that's why we're capturing this at 60 frames a second on my Windows 10 Education laptop. It's a quad-core Celeron, 1.1 gig CPU in that thing. I think it's only 4 gigs of RAM, but it's just a capture device. I'm perfectly fine with that. I am capturing this with a Vivitar USB dongle. I actually got it from Walmart like a couple of years ago. It can capture a 1080p at 60 frames a second. Not necessary here. It also only captures in mono, no stereo capture, unfortunately. So here's the battle tutorial. The frame rate's going to be in the 30s, probably 40. Weak attacks. Oh, wrong, yeah. I'm playing with a Switch controller, so the button inputs are mucked up. If you're playing with a 360 controller or a PlayStation 5 controller, I would argue that won't be a problem. Power! There you go. You can also hold down the button to charge it up for a charge attack. You move more slowly. There you are. Waggity waggity. Hold down LB, then press X. That's a class strike to take down an enemy with a special attack. So I guess that's what all those gems were for. So yeah, the frame rate never got out of the 40s, or at least it never got higher than 45 if it ever did. But again, just imagine playing this game on a Switch, and I think 30 frames a second would be completely reasonable. Now, there are other people who would complain that, yeah, the original game runs at 60 on a Super Nintendo, but, excuse me, a Super Famicom. My apologies. But consider the kind of game this is. I've never actually, I don't think, I played this game on emulator way back in the late 90s, back when doing so was playing a game like this. Wow, they made a sequel to Secret of Mana. Let me play this Japanese game with an English patch. Let me spend like half an hour trying to figure out how to combine an IPS file with a ROM that I somehow downloaded from the internet store. But nowadays we have remakes that look way better, but okay, I know. People have their preferences. Trials of Mana, was it Seiken Densetsu 3? This game is based on Seiken Densetsu 3. For people, but I'm not going to give you the whole rundown. The game we call Secret of Mana here in the United States was actually a sequel to the game that we called Final Fantasy Adventure. Final Fantasy Adventure was the Game Boy game called Seiken Densetsu. It was brought over to the United States and renamed Final Fantasy Adventure for no reason, because no Final Fantasy game has anything to do with anyone. Okay, the Amazon's blocking me. So let's respect the Amazon's wishes and go somewhere else. I was probably supposed to. I was supposed to. Just a second. Where's the options? Yes, not stats display. I was trying to change the options. Can I change the options? Maybe I can't. Yeah, I can't change the options. Got story. All right, fine. I wanted to change the mini map. I probably can. I'm just not gonna worry about it till later. Strategy, training. There we go. Wrong button. Had to press the X button for that. Options. Let's see. Change the difficulty if you want. Can't change that. You can change from window to full screen. Probably should not have done that, but that's okay. The game's still capturing. We're not dead. Copyrights. You want to display the copyrights? Pafuhana123. What? It's a Kawaii Physics. It's a Kawaii Physics. What? Kawaii Physics? One hopes it's G-rated physics. You know, anime physics. Normally, anime physics will get me in trouble. But, yeah. Get this video demonetized. But for now, we'll just stick to this. Instant sounds like a good idea. How do we rotate the mini-map? You rotate mini-map on. The idea is that if my character is turned around, the mini-map adjusts accordingly. I just need to know where north is. And we're facing north. It's the N at the top of the mini-map in the top right-hand corner of the screen. So there's your N. There's your orientation. Sorry to all of my viewers in the southern hemisphere. Guess you're gonna have to adjust like the rest. You're gonna have to adjust like you always do. I'm certain. Are there any Japanese possessions or territories that are south of the equator? I want to say no. We're fine. So we gotta visit all these stars on the mini map, which means talk to all these people. I'm not even paying attention to the story. I'm just following the stars. We're just following the waypoints. I played the PlayStation 4 demo several years ago on this channel. I think it was the Angela story, and it took me like half an hour to figure out where anything was. I'm guessing the stars on the menu were added in a later patch. I don't know because I don't remember the PlayStation 4 version having stars to guide you. But at any rate, again, we'll get to some combat. The combat's actually going to be about 10 minutes into this video, so you can skip it. I'll probably put a timestamp on here. But yeah, the frame rate's going to dip to the 30s or 40s. We're in the 30s now, just walking around, so that's kind of disappointing. I guess the kawaii physics is the hair, right? But I do think it's hilarious that they have like a GitHub for kawaii physics, so they can handle the hair jiggle. No, the G-rated jiggle. Filthy lucre. Wait, we're still going this way. Okay, I got distracted. What was I talking about? Yeah, we're safe behind this big, beautiful wall the Titans will never get through. Well, technically they were refugees and they still got attacked. That's another issue entirely. So we can't go here? Welcome back, Captain. Welcome back, Captain. We'll be fine. Is there any more filthy lucre over here? I thought there was. I mean, it's just a demo, right? We don't care. It's just a demo. Probably should mention you have the option between, what is it? X. Option. You have the option between the original music from the Super Famicom, the original SPC tracker music that, what's his name? Kikuta Hiroyuki, the guy who did the music to Secret of Mana. You can use his original soundtrack. You can do the remake, the arrangement. I don't know who did the arrangement. No. But I want to say Kikuta also did Kikuta-san also did the music to Invincible? No, Indivisible. The Valkyrie profile-ish action RPG hybrid that I played on this channel. So it was a Valkyrie profile homage, basically. Which I did like, but I stopped playing. Not because it was bad, but because I played it for like 10 hours. I'm like, okay, this seems fine. And then I just shelved it. I shelved it and sold it because I bought it for like $5 because physical copies of Indivisible are everywhere. I mean, I guess it was completely over. Well, I would say it was oversold, but they shipped out way too many copies because they're constantly on clearance. I'm pretty sure you can get there are Walmarts that still have Indivisible on the clearance shelves for like $15, $20, which isn't a bad price for that game. You can probably get it on Steam for like $5 these days. There was a demo that was I don't even think it was a beta. I think it was an alpha. I think it was like a Kickstarter demo, and they just put it on Steam. And I don't remember if it was any good, but because the code was so old, it might lead people to ask how much got patched after the game actually got released. Because I bought the disc on the Xbox One, which is how I made the videos. I rented the PS4 disc. I bought the Xbox One disc, but I made the videos from the PlayStation 4 disc. And I want to say both of those games had, I think it was version 1.0 code, like it was basically release day one code. And I want to say what you hold down the Y button. And I want to say what happened was the game got got a day one patch or something, because there were some values and some interface, some HUD elements in the interface. Some button prompts got changed. I want to say there were some balancing updates. Like I think they gave the enemies fewer hit points, and they gave your main characters more hit points early in the game. Because I saw guys like I saw guys like Tom Chick playing the game on his YouTube channel, and the basically his experience level was lower than mine, but I want to say he had more hit points. Like basically, I want to say whatever build he was playing with on PC was different than the build I was playing with on my console from a disc. Now, of course, the only way to know is to actually pull out the disc. But I just think it's interesting that, Indivisible had a demo. It might still be on Steam. I was on the low end gaming subreddit recently, and I was telling people, hey, here are a bunch of demos you can download right now that you can use to test out the power of your rig. Because, again, games like this might not run that well on an older budget PC, but this $200 budget PC that I bought back in 2023 runs. I guess I was joking earlier. I was shocked how well it ran Control. I mean, 30 frames a second early on. It probably dips lower than that if you get to like the corridor of doom, which I believe is what a Eurogamer called it. Like there are parts of the game where the frame rate tanks consistently, even after patches. So it's used as a stress test by some of the folks who work at Digital Foundry, so that they can see how does the game perform. Like if you got a Surface tablet and you try to play video games on it, how well does it perform under this particular stress test? That kind of thing. If you have a Steam Deck or a Switch and you play Control, how is the performance during this one stress test? And I am interested in stuff like that. I guess I can go on the PC gaming subreddit, which is probably a den of what's the word? What's the Star Wars What's the Star Wars line? A den. It's a den of scum and villainy and master race hierarchy snobbery. It's a den of snobbery. But it might be interesting to figure out if there are some demos that are really like taxing. Because I was playing the Forspoken demo and the Tekken 8 demo on my desktop behind me. My newest desktop with the 3050, with their GeForce 3050 inside of it. And that thing, again, it runs on that hardware, but it's on like low settings. You have to use DLSS to kind of smooth things over. I have an NVIDIA card, of course. So you can use NVIDIA DLSS to kind of smooth things over, make the game look a little bit tolerable. The game never really looks good on low settings. You can increase the texture quality a little bit to normal, but the game never really looks good. There's too much foliage. Let me put it this way: there's too much grass. Basically, there's too much grass on the ground. It's kind of like how I describe it. It's like tall grass and horizon. It's very dense, and it doesn't look that good on low settings. So that's a bit of a problem. X button to dodge roll. I want to say this is like the Super Nintendo game, and that the Super Nintendo game I want to say had like an arena. It's like Star Ocean. You have this arena that had a top-down view, and you get into real-time combat, kind of like in the original Secret of Mana. But I am curious how the original game plays. I do have. That's right. I have I have the Mana collection on Switch. Yeah, the collection of Mana cartridge. I still have that. I played Final Fantasy Adventure. I played a bit of that on this channel. So if you're curious how the Switch version plays, I have a video of that. I did not play Trials of Mana because that is a direct port of the Super Famicom game with an English patch, which is arguably the reason why I bought it. Because I'm not really that interested in Final Fantasy. Oops, you see the frame rate. I'm not really that interested in Final Fantasy Adventure as a game, but Secret of Mana, I already own on the Super NES Classic, and it's actually, let's be honest, it's not a good game. I loved it when I was a kid. It was one of my favorite games on the console when I was a kid. I put about 20, 30 hours into it at least, and I actually visited a friend's house at the time, and he took me to like the final like third of the final 2 hours of the game. We did a co-op run. He was sort of a Jap. Well, he wasn't one. He really wasn't an RPG fan. But I remember him liking Final Fantasy VI a lot because he got into Japanese RPGs around the same time I did. Actually, a bit later than I did. Because I was playing stuff like Final Fantasy One and Dragon Warrior on the NES, and he finally got into it when Final Fantasy VI came out. I think he got into Chrono Trigger, but he was loving Final Fantasy VII. I don't know if he stayed in. I think he might have dropped out of university so we can play more games like Final Fantasy VII. The guy's married with kids now, so I'm curious how he would feel about it. But I tend to believe. I think he's the kind of guy who died when Aerith died for our sins. You know, he's probably the guy who cried when Aerith got hit by a chair. She got hit by a folding chair. I'm sure you've seen the meme. I don't know. I guess I was always a Tifa fan. On a related note, I have the frame rate hold up. It was in the 30s. So there's your test. There's your frame rate test for the Trials of Mana demo. I just wanted to see how the game played during combat. So you're seeing the frame rate never really got out of the 30s, which isn't terrible. I want to say you can adjust the yeah, I think if you adjust the resolution of the screen, you can't. I don't think you can. I think you're forced to play in widescreen. I don't think it's possible to play this in a 4:3 aspect ratio. So you really can't save on processing power by adjusting the resolution to a 4:3 aspect ratio, which is on an older game like a Saints Row 4 or a Arkham City. The game was made for CRT televisions, or it was made for traditional televisions. So you can play in widescreen if you want, but the game does allow you to play on a 4:3 aspect ratio with some EVGA and Super VGA. In fact, I think Arkham City lets you play at VGA resolutions. It's one of those poor suckers like me who, well, I had a Super VGA monitor. But I think it was an no, I think it was an EVGA monitor. It was an 800 by 600 monitor, I want to say. And you can play at 640. You can play at VGA resolutions if the game is old enough. Like you can play Skyrim at 480p on a VGA resolution. That's how I played it on my laptop. On my discount, on my budget, was my budget. It was my budget dual core Windows 8 laptop. I use that to play a lot of low spec games on this channel. I play King of Fighters on it. I know I played Fallout New Vegas on it. So these are laptops that are old. They have like 2 gigs of RAM. It's like 1.4 gigahertz. It's like a dual core processor. It's like a Celeron. It's like not an Atom. It was a Celeron processor. 2 cores, 1.3 or I think 1.4 gigahertz processor, running Windows 8 with 2 gigs of RAM. But it will play it'll play Dungeons and Dragons, Shadows of Mystara. It'll play a game from the 20th century. It'll play Sacrifice. It'll play. I played 100 hours of Civilization 4 on that laptop. And I think I also played Sid Meier's Pirates. I really need to play Sid Meier's Pirates. That is a perfect laptop game. Like if you're like again, the heat wave's over here in the Fallout 3 zone. The nuclear winter was over for about a week, and the heat wave is finally done. So we just got some rain coming through. So I think for the next couple of days we'll be out of the high 90s. It was really bad, but if I can keep my air conditioner off, that would be amazing. It's probably not going to happen, but I'll make some compromises. Like tonight, I'm going to cut the temperature down to like 76. Then I can keep it below 80 degrees while I'm living my best life. But what was the plan exactly? Again, uh, I'm gonna let Reddit know about the demos I've been messing with. But the idea is that I need to commit because I have these two PCs. Because again, the discourse surrounding the GeForce 3050, the 6 GB card that I have, has been really, really like nasty. But it's mostly because I think it's overpriced. Like this 6 GB card should cost like $150, but it's being sold for $200 and more. So people are obviously mad about it. They're mad about that because the level of performance you get seems to be kind of mediocre for the price you're paying. But that's video cards generally. I mean, never mind that Nvidia is the most valuable company on the planet right now, right? As of summer of 2024. I mean, what were they doing? I think they took all their crypto money and invested it in R&D. And now that AI is a thing, AI is using all these Nvidia chips to do all of their machine learning or whatever. I forget. I have to go back over my reading on that. But the point is that Nvidia's got, and now they're getting a whole bunch of investor money. So now they're kind of like Amazon was in 2020. They're just totally overinvested. But we're not going to talk about that now because what matters is that the card that I'm using now was on clearance for $125. One, because you need Windows 10 to run it. The person who bought this card before I got it probably tried to shove it into a Windows 8 PC, or it tried to shove it into a Windows 7 PC or something, or a Windows 8 PC, and then they got a certificate error because you can't download the freaking signatures to even run the card properly. So you can't install the software properly. I tried. So I had a $120, I bought a pre-owned $120 desktop with Windows 10 on it, and it runs just fine. Like I said, I joked I had to pull the USB-C. Well, there are like 6 USB-C ports. There are 6 USB 3.0 ports. I had to remove the cord from the motherboard connection to the front ports so that I can fit that freaking card inside the slot so that it would seat properly. OEM, I hate OEM design sometimes, but if you get the card that works, you're fine. The reason I bought that pre-owned desktop, because if I couldn't get it to work, I was going to return it to the store anyway. But it worked. I just have half as many USB 3 ports as were available at the time. But again, I got 3 USB 3 ports in the back. I don't have to worry about that. But that 3050 card, was $120, which I would argue is a steal because ignore inflation. $100 for a video card usually is crap. You can probably buy a Radeon 580, which is what I did. Actually, I was gonna buy one, but I found out after the fact that a Radeon 580, one, it requires external power. Two, it requires what is it? Use dash. Okay, I guess we dash occasionally. Press the left stick. Filthy lucre. I got 2 whole lucre. Yay! I literally found 2 bits. But yeah, it's like what was I talking about? Yeah, for $120, you can't really. Again, the Radeon 580 is big. It's hot. It's a furnace, but it's also old. And the Radeon 3050 I think performs better than that card as I recall. But the Radeon 580 is it's not a Secret of Mana game unless you have dancing innkeepers or dancing merchants. What was that game? So I wanted to get a 580, but one, I think it's too big. Two, it's too hot. Three, it requires external power, which I'm loath to buy a card that requires external power because most of my desktops use what do you call it? Almost all my desktops have OEM power supplies, which tend to be kind of they're not as generous. Your typical desktop might have a 400-watt power supply. I want to say my desktop has a 250-watt power supply. I'll double check, which is very power efficient. That's extremely power efficient for a desktop. The downside being you can't put a big honking GPU. You can't put like a GeForce 3080 in there. It's not going to fit. And two, basically, it's gonna be bottlenecked by the power supply because the power supply is not going to be able to provide enough juice to run that card at the speed you want. Which is why gamer dudes with their RGB gamer lighting start buying 800 and 900 watt power supplies minimum, right? Some of them buy 1 kilowatt power supplies so they can stick their big honking Founders Edition cards in there. I don't game that way. So the least, I mean, yeah, your boy, the Dave Ramsey of gamers, is basically saying, look, you can play with if you're me, don't buy a laptop to play video games. Buy a laptop as your daily driver to do work. And then you buy a desktop as like a supplement. Like my desktops aren't used for like browsing the internet because that's extremely wasteful in terms of electricity. But for gaming, they're amazing. Like to me, a power efficient laptop is like a laptop is not a gaming solution. It is a gaming supplement. You can buy a PC like I did, not to play PlayStation 5 games, although I can. So it's basically a PlayStation 4.5. It plays PlayStation 5 games at 1080p. Oh, excuse me. It plays PlayStation 5 games at 768p or lower if I choose. And what's the other thing it does? It also plays, like again, it plays PS4 games at 60 frames a second. It plays Xbox 360 games in 4K. It plays PS4 games at 60 frames a second or 1440p in some cases. So it's kind of, I would argue that desktop is an Xbox Series S because it has a disk drive, but why would you buy a PC game on a disk these days? Almost every disk I know requires some kind of Steam authentication. So it's basically like that you're basically downloading games like an Xbox. But unlike the Series S box, you don't have to hack it or mod it to play older games. If I want to play a Civilization, like what's the oldest game I've played? Well, I played Skyrim on this thing. You can play Skyrim on a Series S, but you have to buy it. Because I have the Xbox One version of Skyrim, but can I play that on a Series S? I haven't bought the digital version, so I don't know how that works. Of course, if I wanted to download a patch, I could. That's a good question. But I don't want to buy a Series S right now because I don't want to buy another console right now. Especially, I don't want to buy a console where I can't use discs to buy video games. But I would buy a Series S if I can take all of my Xbox One games, convert them to a digital form, and then and then play them on my Series S. But that requires me to borrow a high-speed, a high-speed internet connection with no data cap, so that I can download my games onto my, external hard drives, and then shuffle them in and out of, the Series S internal hard drive. Because again, the Series S is basically a desktop. It's a slim desktop. It's a desktop mini, basically. You can't really, although if you were to buy a desktop mini, you could, I don't think you can, yeah, I don't think you can slip a low profile video card into one of those things. Desktop minis are cute. I like them as a principle, but the desktop minis I've seen are like puny. They're like the size of a PlayStation 2, a slim PlayStation 2. Yeah, they're like twice the size of a Switch. Like a mounted Switch is a little bit larger than the desktop minis I've seen. So I guess it's more like a traditional desktop, but it's not a full-size one. Like I'm going the wrong way. Am I supposed to go over here? I'm supposed to go inside the building. I do have my first gamer PC, my first baller PC. It's that dual-core Windows 7 PC I was telling you about. I slid a Radeon 240 in there, single slot. And it gets it plays Saints Row 4 at 60 frames a second. It plays Skyrim at 60 frames a second. It plays Arkham City at 60 frames a second. It plays Shadow of Mordor at like 40 to 50 frames a second, which is the reason I got it. Because at the time, I didn't have an Xbox One, I didn't have a PlayStation 4, so I wanted to be able to play some of these new games, and I could. So I got to see what the fuss was about. But yeah, I would not buy another computer like that if I can help it, because I have a bunch of video. I put a GeForce 1030 in that machine. I mean the fast one, not the slow one. So it's a really good card, but you don't want to play. You can't play Doom on it because it's a dual core. You can't play Doom on a dual core with 2 gigs of RAM in there. Though I think I have 4 gigs of RAM in there now. I think I slotted some extra RAM in there. Okay, so we get the idea. So we're done. So we're gonna end the game. Back out. Return to title. So yeah, this game runs at about 30. This game is fine. It's a laptop. It's an action RPG, but it's not a really demanding game where you gotta play it at 60. So I mean, if you're playing on a laptop, like I can imagine, like a younger gamer, like someone's like, "Hey, Dad, I bought maybe not a Chromebook. It's like, hey, Mom and Dad, I got this $300 laptop as my first PC, and I want to play games on it." Well, that's part of the reason why I'm making these videos in particular. This is my Steam Deck friendly low spec gaming laptop playlist, and Trials of Mana gets a passing grade. 30 frames a second on a beefy budget laptop, like a $250, $300 laptop, might play this game. This laptop, like I said, it's an i3. It's got 4 threads. That's the important thing. It's got 8 gigs of RAM, DDR4, I think. That's important too. So yeah, 30 frames a second. Fine. For a laptop, for a game like this, you're fine. A lot of Japanese RPGs on PC run at 30 frames a second, so I think you'll be fine. If you're playing on a Switch and you're okay with playing this game on a Switch, you'll be fine with this. And unlike a Switch, you can actually, do work on it. I'm not sure you can play Doom on this thing. And I was disappointed with games like Saints Row 4, which I played yesterday on this machine, and it's not great. But definitely Road Redemption was a big winner. That gets an A from me, maybe an A plus. Like 60 frames a second, runs great. I mean, it doesn't. If you can turn all the settings on low and it still looks good, runs great at 60 frames a second. It's a lot of fun to play. If you're playing on a plane or on a train or on a bus, if you're willing to pull out a laptop on the bus, it's great. Trails of Mana, again, I give this one a B, maybe a B plus. Like, frame rate's not great, but it looks good on low settings. So you don't need to crank up the settings. It looks good at its default settings. In other words, you don't have to crank the game up. This isn't like Forspoken. Forspoken looks ugly as sin on the lowest settings. This game looks very good on the lowest settings, as you can see right here. In fact, I don't think I had to make any changes. I don't think there are any settings. Yeah, the settings are the resolution and the frame rate. Those are your settings. Yeah, like there's no way to adjust there's like no anti-aliasing, no shadow resolution setting. It's literally just how big do you want the picture to be? That's the setting. We can adjust the frame rate, like we set it to 60. We can lock it to 30. Before we end the video, let's test at 30 frames a second. Actually, I can't because I can't fight. But you get the idea. We set the ceiling for the frame rate counter high to see how high it can go and see how low it drops. So we can lock it to if the frame rate limiter works, we can lock it to 30 and we won't have to worry about the jerkiness. So I guess I'll do a test. No. So we set it to 30. So we'll close, save the settings, load a game, and just see how it runs. So we'll just bop around the open world to see how it runs, and we'll end the video with that. But yeah, I like video games that perform decently on laptops. I'm most likely going to play this on my desktop. I just want to see how it ran on my laptop. I had a bunch of demos, just wanted to see how the frame rate limiter is kind of working. It's in the yeah, it's kind of a sloppy 30. It's a choppy, sloppy 30, but it'll do the job. I think a solid, yeah, a more consistent 30 frames a second would be ideal, but it's not holding it. No, well, what are you gonna do? What you could do is play on a more powerful computer, but I mean, this is Trials of Mana. I think you'll be fine. Frame rate's okay. So if you're really serious about locking down the frame rate limiter that's built in will probably be okay. You're not getting 120 out of this game. Of course, I don't have a 120 hertz monitor, so that's another issue entirely. So we'll probably worry about that later. Okay, so that's Trials of Mana on PC, playing on my i3 four thread laptop, 3 gigs with 8 gigs of RAM inside. DDR4, as I said.